This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, we've packed a number of shows together to give you some highlights. I know you're going to enjoy the show. Thank you for being with us today. Cowboy Joe, welcome to the show. Honored to have you on. I've, after reading a little bit about you, actually seeing you on another podcast, I had the team reach out because I thought you'd be a great guest. You just a lot of great experience, even some war stories. I know we're going to dive into a little bit that I think's helped you in a massive way. It's going to help the listeners as well. But welcome.
Thank you for having me on here, Whitney. Really enjoy doing this and hope by sharing that I add value to your listeners as well.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you will, for sure. Well, 39 years of experience in construction, project management, development. Lots of different aspects of this business and real estate, and no doubt you've learned a lot, to say the least. But let's hear a little bit about that, though. Let's go back to your experience in real estate, how you got to kind of where you're at today, because there's many things there that I know are helping you now to help many other people, that you learned, right? So let's back up a little bit. Who's Cowboy Joe, and how did you get to where you're at today?
Well, I was raised on a ranch. My granddaddy was a very intelligent businessman. He built an empire in Sumter County, Alabama, literally built most of that town and that county with partners. I developed a love for the land and improving the land throughout that. Went into college with majoring in environmental science with the thought that, okay, I can do stuff that benefits the land, and started doing environmental remediation with a little bitty company called Waste Management Incorporated, traveling all over the world, literally, and was enjoying that. They sold my division to another company that I didn't agree with their business practices, so I went into business for myself. Started investing in real estate. I'll date myself here. My first mentor was Charles J. Givens. There's probably not a lot of people that know who he is, but he was one of the original real estate educators in the space. He's passed since then. I started in fix and flip and creative finance, but I loved development. I loved what can I do with raw land. So I just jumped into development wide open. Back then, we were taught money sitting in a checking account was dead money. It had to be working. So you take that money, you put it to work, and you leverage it into something else. And if you got equity in a project, then you take that equity as well and you leverage that into something else, and you keep leveraging. Well, leverage is the secret of the rich, but it's strategic leverage, making sure you're not over leveraged. 08, 09 come along, and following those concepts, I was like, okay, we're rocking and rolling. And between my real estate ventures and my company that was doing government construction was worth close to $100 million. Well, 08, 09 happened, and with all that over leveraging and things, there was a domino effect, and I went from being worth that to a rather large negative number. That put me into a tailspin. I also had a four-wheeler wreck that had me bedridden for about 7 months, and then I used that as an excuse not to do anything for another year and a half. Went through a very brutal divorce, and couch surfed for a year and a half. I learned that term from my kids. That's euphemism for being homeless. Basically would stay at a friend's house until I wore up my welcome, and then go to another friend's house. Stayed in my truck for a while as well. But I woke up one day and I said, all right, this isn't you. You're being lazy. You got to get back at it. Kind of cowboy way. You get thrown off the horse, you got to get back on. So started doing the exact same thing that made me a multimillionaire the first time around. And I felt like I was hitting my head against a wall, hitting the ceiling, couldn't go anywhere. I actually felt I was going backwards, doing the same thing I did that I know made money. So I started having the thoughts, okay, was I lucky the first time? Did I truly deserve that? Is it me? And then just all the self-talk that we go through when we perceive we're not being successful. So I was fortunate. I ran across he's a friend, a mentor, and a partner, a book called Chasing Success by Dr. Alok Trivedi. Well, when I clicked on the link to buy the book, it said, well, book a call with the author. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like you're going to talk to the author. I booked it anyway, and not to go too deep into it, but we had a talk. And one of the things he said, until you get rid of that anger, you're going to stay stuck and you're not going to go anywhere. Well, I laughed at him. I said, Doc, if you told 100 people that knew me that I was an angry person, they'd laugh at you too. And he said, well, you keep believing that. And I sat there for a second and I'm like, well, okay, maybe he knows something, because I was an angry person and I'd stuffed it so deep that I didn't even realize I was an angry person. But I was operating from a point of anger and resentment and even shame and guilt over all of the events that happened in my life. And that's the thing. We're all running on programs from root experiences in our life, from birth all the way up until where we are currently. And until we learn how to deal with those root experiences and actually understand that everything serves us, and being able to see both sides of those experiences, they continue to control our decision making processes. So events that happened to me when I was 6 years old were still controlling my decision making processes, although I was a 50-year-old, quote, mature adult male. I was still making decisions as a 6-year-old because those programs were still running me. Being able to change that, now I can make high performance decisions because I can take a step back and understand that my perception is one sided, and step back to be able to see both sides, because every moment has both sides. So our perception don't allow us to see it. So you step back, you're able to see both sides, you're able to make a informed decision versus running on programs. And that's really what I focus on now, is helping other people with the tactics and strategies to become financially independent, but more importantly, the consciousness that is controlling them behind it. Because if you don't resolve the consciousness, yeah, you may be able to have short-term success in tactics and strategies. But let's face it, if anybody else has had success in tactic and strategy, it's a proven tactic or a proven strategy. The only difference is one person's consciousness is different than the other person's consciousness. You can take two people in the exact same area with the exact same resources doing the exact same thing. One will be successful and one will fail. The only difference is that consciousness. But more importantly, a lot of people say mindset, but it's not up here. When you get it into your heart where it counts.
Yeah. Wow. I, I was thinking about what you said, about you built a company over, worth over 100 million, and obviously 08, 09 happened. And, you said you went to a negative number, at that point you're bedridden for 7 months, horrible divorce, even homeless to some degree, it sounded like. And so that is a hard place, right? To be in. And now, tell me the name of the book again. I wanted to get that down.
It's Chasing Success, Dr. Alok, Alok Trivedi.
Awesome.
Uh,
Well, I just appreciate your transparency, because I know that so many probably weren't worth 100 million, or didn't have a business worth 100 million, right? Even before 08 or 09, but still lost everything and haven't recovered, right? Haven't gotten back off the couch again, for lack of better analogy there, but it's so true. And so I just appreciate, your willingness to share so openly about it. But really, you coming to the point where it's like, hey, this is not who I am. I've got to, I can go do, I can go, I can go make things happen again. But you talked about how you got up, you got started, but like you were struggling to go anywhere. right? Or it seemed like, right, you were doing some of the same things. But what, was it talking to that author then? What was the next thing that really helped you to transform the direction or the path, that you were going in?
Well, I actually went through Dr. Trivedi's Ultimate Rewire program, where he actually teaches you his processes that he uses to rewire your brain. You create new neural pathways, you strengthen those pathways, and you actually dissolve old pathways because, and it's completely different than NLP, and all of those are great procedures to do, but you're putting that experience in a box and putting a lid on it and managing it. So if you have another event that happens and it knocks the lid off that box, it's right back there at you again. Same thing with most therapists. They carry you back to the moment, but then they don't carry you through the moment. So all you did was you strengthened that charge again. You made that neural pathway that much stronger, and it made it that much more control over you versus going through the processes to dissolve that charge. The minute you dissolve that charge, you've dissolved that pathway. You've started creating a new pathway. And the more you stay on the new pathway, the stronger it gets. It's an entirely different way of thinking. When you start doing the processes, your brain automatically starts thinking that way. That's one of the things I love about his processes is he doesn't want you dependent on him. He teaches you the processes. And of course, now I teach those processes as well because we've partnered and I help teach these processes as well. The biggest thing is you don't have to sit and try to control and manage it. It's an entirely different way of thinking.
Let's speak to that way of thinking a little bit, or maybe this is kind of what I was moving into anyway, almost. But you had referenced earlier, maybe even before we started recording, about this paradigm shift for financial independence, right? But speak to what that looks like and how this has come from what you were just talking about as well as far as shifting our thinking, right?
Number one, you have to know what are your beliefs around money and what are your values. We're all wealthy, but we judge ourselves based on what form that wealth is in. Like a lot of us say that we want money. However, if money's not in your values, you very rarely will have money, at least long term. If your beliefs around money, and even jokingly, a lot of people say, I want to be filthy rich. Well, if you're thinking that being rich is filthy and you want to be upright and moral and that you're a clean person then you will automatically do things to not be rich because you're associating rich with being filthy. And if you value social connection, then you will spend money to make sure you've got social connection. If you value your health, if you value your family, then you will spend money to be wealthy in your family and in your health, but you'll judge yourself because you don't have any money. You don't realize that you've spent that money on what you do value. Now, there's ways to raise your value of money as well. It doesn't matter if it's not in your values to start with. The key is knowing what are your beliefs first, what are your values, and then choosing what values you want to change, what beliefs you want to change, and realizing that wealth is all 7 areas of your life and empowering all 7 areas of your life versus chasing one area at the detriment for the other. So if you're chasing money, you may destroy your family in the process or your health. Ask me how I know that. I destroyed both my health and my family in the process of chasing money versus empowering my life in all areas.
I love that. Just thinking about wealth not being just about the dollar, right? And I can personally relate to this in a big way. It's the same way through my childhood, my father, his childhood. Like I can look back and I can think about how he was affected and I was by money early on, right? And how that changes so much about the way you think about money and wealth in the future by what happened, as a child. And so, but I love, thinking about, man, wealth not just being about a dollar, but about so many different areas and what you value. Speak to what different areas are you referring to, and how do we, I guess, have some kind of balance there if there's a such thing as balance?
There is balance. The universe is always in balance. It's our perception doesn't allow us to see it at times. Um, the 7 areas of life, at least as far as I'm concerned, is mental. Are you doing stuff that is mentally stimulating you each day? Learning falls under mental, teaching falls under mental. Are you growing every day in that area? Are you doing stuff that inspires you? Or are you doing the same repetitive stuff day after day because you don't want to engage your brain and you want to check out from the world? And then the next is vocation. Is your business or your job inspiring? Do you get to impact others? Or again, are you showing up for work to get a paycheck and that's it? Get home and veg out or break out the alcohol to escape from it all. And then financial is the next. Are you having trouble managing money? Can you not keep it? Or are you able to save and invest and money's easy for you? It's different levels and different scales on all of it. Now, on the money side, my granddaddy taught me something or told me something at a young age that it took me a long time to grasp. It's really simple, but he said, money's a lot like cats. And I'm like, how is money like a cat? So think about it. If you chase a cat, how easy is it to catch a cat? And if you actually do catch that cat and it doesn't want to be caught, you usually get clawed, scratched, and beat up in the
Usually let
process of
go of
letting
it,
the cat
right?
go. Whereas if you go over in the corner and start doing something the cat's interested in and ignore the cat will come bug the fool out of you to get your attention. So it took years to realize that he was right on that, but money is a lot like cats. If you chase it, it's hard to catch. If you go do something